Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class today. Jason, thank you for engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. With us today in the front of the classroom, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning.
Hey, Rick. I received that, an email from you, and this morning I got a chance to listen to about, not quite half of it. And it was, called A Night at the Palladium, Dennis Prager, Happiness is not a feeling, it's a moral obligation. You want to talk about that?
Well, yeah, that's a good concept. You know, he says, well, I'll let you start it off, but basically, you know, being happy is a responsibility. You're not supposed to just be happy. You're supposed to work at it because it's important.
Well, it's contagious, and worse than people might believe is the contagion of being unhappy. And I was telling Jason, our engineer, just before the broadcast started. I mentioned the title to the book, and Happiness is a Serious Problem, is Dennis Prager's book that he referred to many times in this video. But I said, there's an old saying, when mom's unhappy, nobody's happy. And that's absolutely true. And I said it's even true with siblings. So if there are, some children in the family, if one of them's not happy, it brings the whole family down. So I guess the point the salient point of his speech was that it is so contagious. I don't know if he actually says it because I didn't hear the whole thing, but it's so contagious that when people are unhappy, it brings a lot of people down.
Well,
and if that happens, then
you've got to work at being positive, and positive people tend to attract moody people. Did you catch any of his talk at all? Did you get a chance to?
Yeah. Well, he said that, if a person's moody, generally moody, they don't look for another person just like them to, be moody, in series or in parallel and make it worse. They look for someone who's happy, because it's a lot more pleasant to be with someone happy than it is to be with someone moody. And I got to tell you, one of our children, one of our boys, is looking for, the perfect mate. Gosh, it's tough. I mean, he's got a list of criteria, and one of them is the person's got to be happy, because he doesn't want to be dragged down by someone who's not happy. So it's a really big deal. And I've got to tell you, Mrs. Finelli wakes up every morning. What a great day. It could be snowing. It could be thunderstorms. What a great day. And, she's always happy, and it sure is pleasant. And I can understand why people throw their spouses overboard for the exact opposite, meaning miserable, unhappy. I really can.
So his point was that people normally choose the opposite of what they are. And that as people get more moody, you move on, because I've been blessed. I've found somebody that's also a positive person like myself, and it's wonderful. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's perfect. I've been with moody people, and I've been with, I don't know how to explain it. I guess.
It's like this, Rick. It's like this. So you say to that other person, hey, you want to go for a walk? We can go through the woods and we can go look at nature. Nah, they're ticks and, and it's bumpy and it's a little chilly and, it's kind of between, wearing a jacket and not wearing a jacket and it might rain. And, no, I don't want to go. I mean, versus, yeah, let's do it. Let's just bring a jacket just in case.
So I have found somebody, and it's wonderful because whenever I'm starting to get depressed, I just am immediately pulled back out of it, just like I pull people out of depression because I'm always positive. I don't know why that happens, but it's a wonderful gift because I don't want to be angry at everything all the time. And I'm noticing that the world is going like that more and more.
Well, all right, let me give you an example. So yesterday, you and I were on the phone. It was late in the afternoon here in Missouri. And we are in a rush to finish getting the hay done. And of course, you have to make hay while the sun shines. And so we were at the end of finishing the last field. Now, the way it works is our son operates the big tractor and he has a big hay mower and he cuts the hay. Mrs. Finelli has a mid-sized tractor and she has like an 18-foot wide hay rake and she rakes the hay. And this happened to be a 40-acre field. And it's going to rain in a day. So, time was of the essence. And my job is once the hay is dried, I go around with the big tractor, another big tractor, and bale it. So, three of us have our jobs to do. And so we got a message. I was on the phone with you, and there was a message from our son. We have two-way radios. And the tractor broke down. So I hopped in the truck. I said, hey, Rick, I've got to go. And so I raced over because I don't know if he got – when we bale hay, there's a lot of potential for injury, serious injury. So whenever we get a message like that, we jump to it right away. No delay. And so I hopped in the truck. I raced over to where he was and he was okay. Everything was fine, in terms of health. But the hydraulic pump broke. And that meant he could not steer the tractor. He could not start the tractor because the hydraulic pump was locked up because it exploded inside. And he couldn't raise the hay mower to put the hay mower on another tractor. So it was a pretty serious problem. So I pulled up side by side with him. He's looking down on me. He's on this tractor and I'm looking up. He's looking down. I said, so what took so long? And I was kind of kidding. And I was saying, so you've been out here for hours. How come it took so long to blow up the tractor? I was kind of smiling. And it was a real serious problem. But, nobody got beat up. Nobody got yelled at because what we did was we just put our backs to it and we solved the problem. We talked about, what's the best approach. And then, when it was dark, we were pulling the tractor home. We had a tow rope and we used a four-wheel drive tractor to pull this other much bigger tractor home. And so we solved the problem in a happy way. I mean, it's catastrophic. That tractor is down for the count until we fix it. But, there's no sense in being angry and throwing things and breaking things and yelling and screaming. It accomplishes nothing. So, we put a smile on our faces and we fixed it. Actually, what we did was we transferred all the equipment to another tractor and 2 hours later we kept on going. And we got the job finished. And then tomorrow it's my job to get out there and bale the hay. So I guess what I'm saying is we could, it was a terrible situation, relatively speaking for here at the farm, but we made the best of it and we kept on going. And I think that's what Dennis Prager, he didn't talk about tractors and breakdowns and that kind of stuff as far as I know, because I didn't hear the whole thing. But the point is you make the best of it and you don't turn it into a miserable experience.
I don't know what to add to that other than it's nice to be back working with you again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, So when you're talking about happiness, I think there's another expression that happiness makes the world go round, something like that too.
Yeah.
And I think it's true. I guess maybe that's why people like to watch comedies. And maybe that's why people like to be entertained. Because it's easy, it puts a smile on your face for, an hour or two, and pulls people out of the doldrums. I guess that's why Branson, Missouri exists. So you can go watch a show and watch smiling people dance and jump around on stage or whatever they do. And, forget life for an hour or so. Because I think people would prefer to be happy. And one of the things that Dennis Prager talked about was moody people and non-moody people, and how moody people don't seem to look for more moody people. Right? Isn't that what he said?
Well, he's saying that usually people choose the opposite of what they are, and that's why things are balanced and so on. But it's really nice when you can find somebody like yourself, and then you don't have that kind of problem anymore. It's kind of cool.
Well, I got to tell you, I would consider myself generally happy, but I've never looked for, I really would like to find some grumpy people and hang out with them. I've never done that.
Well, yeah, there's not a lot to be happy about right now, is there?
Well, there's a lot to be concerned about. That is absolutely for sure. Our healthcare system is spiraling down. I mentioned to you that, in the good old days, you used to be able to call the doctor's office. You could talk to the receptionist. If you needed to talk to a nurse, you could. If you needed to talk to a doctor, you could. Then it got a little worse than that, and then you'd leave a message, and then the nurse would call you back. And now you leave a message, and hardly anybody calls you back. And why is that? So, yeah, that's something to not be happy about, or that's something to be concerned about. So what do? Well, you get some books, and you learn how to take care of things yourself. And around here in Missouri, there's a term for that. So when an animal gets sick, like a cow, they say, well, I had to doctor the cow. What they really mean is they didn't take the cow to the vet, because that's really hard to do sometimes if the cow is down. The vet didn't come out to see the cow. So the farmer, through, watching the veterinarian for years and years and years, and maybe doing some research and reading, has figured out how to do some of the things that the veterinarian does. So what they say here is, I had to doctor the cow. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do. We need to learn how to do a lot of our own medical treatments. We need to figure out maladies and what to do about them. We need to learn a lot about that. We need to learn how to grow our own food. We need to learn how to fix our own vehicles. We need to learn about how to patch the roof, change the faucet cartridges so it stops dripping, change the flush valve so the toilet stops running. We need to be able to fix the fence, patch the driveway. I mean, the list goes on and on. Fix that broken electrical thing, whatever, the appliance. The list goes on and on. And there's happiness in that. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with richardallenmiller.com. We're talking about a video that Rick sent me a link to, and it's on YouTube. And it's by Dennis Prager, and it's called A Night at the Palladium. Dennis Prager, happiness is not a feeling, it's a moral obligation. Here's an interesting statistic, Rick. So I just checked to see where Dennis Prager is ranked. This is live right now. And Dennis Prager is one of the nation's leading broadcasters, nationally syndicated. He is on the top 125 broadcasters that are ranked on TalkStreamLive.com. Dennis Prager is of the top 125. They only rate the top 125 at any given point in time. Dennis Prager is 10 slots higher than we are. And we're talking about Dennis Prager.
Well,
and we're catching up. So, yeah, happiness, he says, is a moral obligation. Well, it's almost a civic duty, wouldn't you say?
it's like everything, you have a choice in the way you choose to look at things. And when you decide that it's depressing, it brings in more depressing things. That's the way it works. It's like you attract what you're radiating. And so you've got to always be thinking in terms of how to change the spin on something that may not be going the way you really want it to. I don't know quite how to do that.
And that's
yet.
what the boss is. That's what the boss is doing. And that's what the boss is doing, or has done, at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He tried to spin a bad situation and prevent people from becoming panicked about it. I mean, that's what he said. But here's an interesting thing. These fires, you're in Oregon, and 1 out of 10, as we've talked about it, is under the potential to have to evacuate. That means leave everything, get in the vehicle and get out of the way. That means your house may not be there when you come back. Your car may not be in the garage when you come back. There's all those things, right? Isn't that what that means?
Well, okay. It meant that for a bunch of people, yeah. Oregon had 1 in 10 people had to evacuate last week. I can't believe it. And the smoke is still bad. It rained this morning, thank you, Lord, which brings it down now, finally. But the quality of the air.
Let me read a definition here, and let's talk about this for a minute, if it's okay with you. This is according to Wikipedia. And I typed in the word wildfire, one word, WILDFIRE, because I keep hearing in the news, wildfire, that term. And to me, I don't think these are wildfires, unless they're saying there's a fire that's wild out of control, like the Wild West out of control. But here's the definition. A wildfire, or a wild land fire, or a rural fire is an unplanned, unwanted, uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation starting in rural areas. And it says that, goes on to say, depending on the type of vegetation present, a wildfire can also be classified more specifically as a forest fire, brush fire, bush fire in Australia, desert fire, grass fire, hill fire, peat, as in peat moss fire, prairie fire, vegetation fire, and veld fire. Now, they use the term wildfire somewhat recklessly, I think, on the media, because I don't believe that the fires that they're calling wildfires are all wildfires, meaning started by nature. I think many of them have been started by arson. And because of that, there's a lot of destruction and a lot of reasons for people to be unhappy because their home just got wiped out. Or they've gotten moved against their will to get out of the way so that they don't become ashes themselves. So there's a lot of potential for people to be unhappy when something like that happens. And in the Wild West, in the 1800s, the same thing happened. People who wanted to destroy the value of land so they could buy it on the cheap would set wildfires. Actually, they set intentional fires, arson, and they burned the grass and the forest. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Rick, when you were faced with the potential for a forced evacuation, how did that impact you, and what is the smoke doing? What is the impact of these arson set fires and other fires that are plaguing the West Coast?
It's hard to tell you what it's like unless you've been in one. The smoke is so bad that you start to get sick right away. Your eyes sting. There's possibility of poison oak in the air, which means you might get poison oak in your lungs. That's always a possibility. And then can they put the fire out so that your house is saved? And while you're abandoning the house, then there's vandalism and other kinds of, I don't know, people will burglarize your house while you're not there.
Yeah, it'd be a bad day around here, I'll tell you that.
That's why we have militias. That's why we do what we do like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people around here don't take kindly to having their property stolen, whether it be personal property or real property. They just don't take it. And when we're talking about happiness, the 1950s, late 1950s television series, Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone, he did an episode where there was this married couple, they're a middle-aged married couple, probably in their 50s. And she, the wife, was really grumpy. And no matter what this husband did, it was wrong. And she couldn't see good in anything that he did. It was just and as you watched it, you think, what's wrong with this woman? How miserable she is. She's making everything worse. And so he even talked about that in the 1950s, and he did an episode of The Twilight Zone about that. And so, according to Dennis Prager, the word moody, kills marriage. You think that's true? I do. Well,
it doesn't help when you're having one person is always depressed and you're trying to bring them back up all the time. I've been there. Mm-hmm.
So, do you have
is a way of being, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way you're raised.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Meaning, if you're beaten as a child for, hey, you did that wrong, and the belt comes out, and hey, you did this other thing wrong, and you get spanked, and hey, you did that wrong, and you get yelled at, and you're facing that every day. Is that what you're saying? That can impact how the nurture, if you will?
Well, it's like you have a choice. Most people come from a place of wounding, and when they see something negative, usually that has to be in yourself before you can see it in someone else. And so it's called projection of the shadow. And when you realize that everybody is, it's like, how do I put this? It's like it's not real. Nothing's real. What's real is just you and this moment. And everything else is that other things that you are projecting onto your scheme of what you think's going on.
Okay, so what that brings to my mind is the video, the images of Germany, 1941, 42, actually even maybe 1939, where the Gestapo would go into the Jewish village, if you will, and the Nazis would terrorize the villagers. And there's not a smile to be seen in the village, not one, because of the terror that was rained down on them by the Nazis, by the stormtroopers, by the Gestapo. And so I have a feeling that the degree of happiness that the people, the villagers, exhibit is a result of freedom and non-oppression. And I have a feeling that that's what we're seeing here in the United States, actually around the world, that the level of oppression has reached a point where it's reached the breaking point. And that's why we're seeing, the protests that become riots. Actually, some of that's obviously engineered to become riots. But I think there's a general feeling of unhappiness in lots of places. And people are looking for happiness, but it's getting harder to find because the freedoms that we all used to enjoy and love, like going out, seeing friends, going to the movies, traveling and things like that have been restricted, and a lot of it has been removed from our possibility of choices. Let me give an example. I went on a trip in the last week with our son. We went to pick up something for the farm. It was 10 hours in the truck. And we had to figure out how we're going to do this. Is our bladder going to be big enough to make a 10-hour round trip? Or are we going to, just walk into McDonald's? Do you need a mask? I mean, and this was out of state. So traveling with something like, in the past, it was no big deal. We wanted to do a 10-hour trip to pick up a piece of farm equipment. We just went. We'd get some bottles of water. We'd get some paper towels. We'd get, make some sandwiches. We'd be good to go. Now it's a big deal. You got to do some planning. So I think people are a little frosted. And what I saw on the road, both in Missouri and out of Missouri on this trip, drivers were out of control. They're miserable. And they're not the same. I mean, they were unfriendly, in the good old days, but now they're out of control. If you're doing the speed limit, you're going to get rear-ended. At least that's what I saw on these multi-lane roads. It was dangerous. I mean, dangerous. And, one of my reactions was, well, I guess that guy's got much better tires on his vehicle than I have on mine. And I'm talking about these new vehicles, like these new pickup trucks that have these massive billboard-sized front ends. I mean, they are, if one of those pulls behind you, his headlights, are the height of your rear window. I mean, they're way up and they're vertical instead of horizontal. So, and the lights are really bright. So these vehicles are designed and manufactured to be intimidating, which is adding to the problem of unhappiness. Because if one of them pulls up behind you, that'll wipe the smile right off your face. Any comments, Rick?
Well, I know that the big trucks now are run by Gen X's, and they just dominate everything. And they're very pushy, which is kind of scary because it's almost like, they're daring you to challenge them. And I don't want to challenge them. They've got a bigger truck than I do.
Well, I was in a full-size pickup truck. I was in my Silverado work truck, nothing fancy, 2004, full-size, 8-foot bed, 2 doors, not a 4-door, just a 2-door work truck. And that's considered a full-size truck. That was dwarfed by a new full-size truck. I mean, dwarfed. And these things the new trucks are wider. They're taller. They have these massive grills that look like, two guys in the wrestling ring trying to psych each other out saying, I'm going to kill you. That's what these grills say. It's awful. And that's where we are today. So even the manufacturers are getting into this mood setting arena where they are trying to appeal to the people who want to be bullies with these trucks. You got to be crazy to have one of these trucks. You can't even reach in to check the oil level under the hood because the hood is so tall. We've got let's see. We've got Sharon in Montana. Welcome, Sharon.
Hey, good morning.
Sharon, can I make a quick comment? Make a quick comment. Of all the people I know, you are among the most happy on the air, off the air, 24/7.
Well, I was going to comment a little bit about that. I think people that are really unhappy, and unless they just deal plain depression, okay, I mean, there are people who have biochemical thing, but I feel like it's due to their expectations of life. They kind of want heaven on earth, and if they don't get it, they take the victim mentality, poor me, poor me. And I do believe I was very fortunate to grow up with parents that didn't teach us that everything was supposed to go well. We all want it to go well, okay? I mean, we all do. But when things go wrong, it didn't blow me away. We have what I always refer to myself as the silver lining syndrome. So you wreck your car, and my sister would say, well, I never did like the color of that car anyway, or it needed new tires. It's silly, but it's like looking for the silver lining that there's some good that can come from tragedy or even hard things. And also that ties into being thankful, but I do believe that looking for what I call the silver linings and being thankful can make the hardest things a little more bearable. I mean, the hardest thing we have ever in our life gone through is our son's death. And even in that, when you think you can't hardly breathe, people came alongside. They brought meals. They even donated money because you don't plan on a funeral, for your kid. That's just not part of most people's planning. And they were kind, and they just took over certain things. And I thought, people that are gloomy would just say, oh, this is horrible, awful, and it is truly horrible and awful, okay? But most of the time in your life, there are a lot of silver linings. People come alongside. We had a house fire eons ago, about 28 years ago. Everything was burned up. But people came by and dropped us stuff. They checked on us. Some friends provided a place for us to stay. And, now we got more junk than you'd ever know, so you would never know we had it. But I feel like it's the perspective that you take in life, like, oh, how could this happen to me? Well, yeah, it is really awful and you don't want it to, but bad things happen in this world, and it's sort of how you take it in stride the best you can. And I do believe it's tied into expectations and thankfulness, and that was just my input for today.
There's a television series that I talked to your husband about, Kyle, several days ago, and it's called Stories of the Century, Matt Clark, Railroad Detective. And these are vignettes, almost an hour long each, and there are 36 of them in this DVD series. This was a television series in, I think, around 1954, 55. And I didn't see it as a youngster because, well, we didn't have a TV back in 1954 and 55, and I was only a couple years old anyway. But in this series, you will see hardship after hardship after hardship, and you'll see how people dealt with it. I'm talking serious hardship, faced with criminal activity that would wipe a ranch or a farm out, lawlessness, and yet people got through it. They didn't say, woe is me. They just got through it. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Sharon is with us in Montana. And, class, I recommended that you consider the television series Combat. It aired on ABC from 1962 to 1967. One more time. It depicted how awful it was for a squad of American soldiers fighting the German army in World War II. Absolutely horrible. Starvation. And what you see is the true nature of the survivors, people who absolutely, no matter what, are going to get through it. And if you think about the environment that this squad was in, they were being shot at, bombed, for 4 years. 4 years, these guys faced death, second by second by second. It was horrible in every respect. And it showed how they got through it, through camaraderie. But it was a very difficult time. And very few people, knowing what it was going to be like, would sign up and say, yeah, I'd love to do that. Because it was rough in every respect. So I suggest you consider that, because life isn't always easy. You're served with challenges all the time. Health, financial, predicaments. It's nonstop, 24/7 for the rest of one's life. So you might want to consider watching that series. I don't recommend that you spend money on anything unless I think it has educational or preparedness value. And I think that has educational value. Sharon, back to you.
Yeah, I was thinking about how the older generation was raised. They were raised to overcome. We actually all have the desire to conquer and overcome. You look at little children, they want to walk, they toddle, they fall, they get back up, they toddle. They want to learn to ride a bike, they try and try, unless parents baby them too much, okay? We kind of have a lot of, this generation, a lot of kids have been babied, and they're built-in confidence has been torn down because, oh, here, honey, don't fall down. Be careful. You know, and there's wisdom in having kids be wise, but there's also a lot of wisdom in let the kid just fall down and figure out, hey, I shouldn't do that, you know. But I feel like the older generation as a whole, they had to basically adhere to what I have a little mantra: adjust, adapt, and overcome. So life throws a lot of hard things at you, and there's a lot of really great things, and you even have to adjust to them. But you need to adjust to it, or you adapt, and that way you overcome. And if you don't adjust and adapt, you're probably going to be squished. And I feel like the old-time people, they had confidence. They had these little kids walking a mile or two in the snow and the cold, and now we go, oh, no, honey, you can't walk that far. You might freeze. And I probably would feel that way because I get real easy. They toughened up. They did really hard stuff. They did chores when they didn't feel like it. They had to make do. They made their own toys. And through that, it was a type of hardship, but it gave them the confidence that I can handle this. Hey, I can do this. And that's where they had the confidence, and they weren't the victim. Oh, poor me, I can't have a dolly instead of making a dollar. I don't have a fort, or, you know what I mean? It's this attitude because they have this expectation of everything's supposed to be perfect. And I don't believe probably any of the old timers, hardly any, if any of them at all, had that attitude that life is going to be easy and peaches and cream, and they weren't going to have to overcome things.
Rick, your thoughts?
Well, she's right. You know, I think we have to. Well, I'm not. Something just happened. I can't. I've got to. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Okay. So, Sharon, in one of the episodes that of this combat series, there's five seasons of it. In one episode, there was the American squad was outnumbered, and they were taken prisoner because the German army brought a tank, and so it was just a squad of guys, and they were outnumbered by Germans, and the Germans had a tank. So the Americans surrendered, and they were able to escape. But while they were captured, one of the Germans liked the boots of one of the squad members from the American army. So the German took his boots. Now, to escape, he didn't have any shoes or boots. So he had to make an escape without them. So what did he do? He took like jackets or shirts and wrapped them around his feet and made improvised footwear so they wouldn't get all sliced up running through the battlefield. That's the kind of ingenuity that is required to get through terrible situations. Now, do we think of things like that, or do we just say, hey, I can't go anywhere because I don't have any shoes? Well, that is the kind of thinking, the intestinal fortitude, the guts that, my parents' generation had for sure. Tom Brokaw called it the greatest generation. And in a lot of ways, he was absolutely right. It was the greatest generation. And we've squandered that intestinal fortitude. Sharon, I'd love to hear your comments when we come back.
Okay.
There you go. Rick will be back with us. We are hitting top of the hour news and commercial announcements. This is USA Prepares. We're talking about happiness and the lack of happiness and moodiness versus non-moodiness and how one moody person can suck the life out of a room. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, richardallenmiller.com. He's our physicist at USA Prepares, senior instructor. And Sharon in Montana's with us. And I mentioned the greatest generation. I'm talking about the guys who served in World War II in the various branches of the military, and their wives and girlfriends, and who stayed back home and worked for the war effort. Worked really hard, long hours at the factories making munitions. They were rationing on meat, sugar, butter, cheese, gasoline, tires, everything you could think of. And life was tough. But we did it. And that was the generation that raised me and Rick and many of us here at USA Prepares. So Sharon, your thoughts about that, the greatest generation?
I do believe they were tougher, but I think that, it's good to see what they did and what they, learn from them. But I feel like people go, well, that was then and I wasn't raised whatever, and they have excuses. And I feel like you're really better off if you say, what can I do? The whole attitude, turn it around like I can't, but as opposed to, well, what can I do? How can I adjust? How can I make it? And I personally think it's really invigorating when you can tackle a problem and overcome it in a unique outside of the box kind of way. And I do realize that when things are really hard, you can get down sometimes. I mean, everybody does. There's days that are just hard. But the more you can look around at what you can do and what you do have and be thankful, the easier it will be. And also, the more you accept reality, the better you can make your life. Like, I personally think we're heading into some major economic crisis in our country. Now, people are limited in what they can do, but most people, if they have a place to stay, can at least get some supplies ready so they aren't quite so dependent upon the just-in-time delivery system. So it's like, well, what can you do? I can do this. Can you get to know your neighbors? Can you get to make connections? Can you get together with your family? It's like, well, what can you do where you're at? Everybody, unless they're just literally living on the street, could actually put back some stuff. There's ways to shave off your expenditures and, put back some important things, which to me is like, okay, that's the best choice you can do. If they make you move out of your house, well, then, you'll just take it from there. But the more skills and knowledge you have, the better off you'll be. So to me, it's more of like, well, what can I do, and not expect that the world's going to be wonderful. Okay, I mean, we all want a wonderful world. We really do. But if you go around expecting that, when you go to town, you're never going to hit a red light, nobody's ever going to cut you off, you're always going to get what you want in the grocery store. Well, when those things don't go that way, you can become very unhappy and grumpy. But if you go in town and saying, I hope I don't hit any red lights, and if you hit one, I thought, well, you got a 50-50 chance of hitting a red light, you know what I mean? And just kind of roll with it, your life will go a lot easier, and you will be happier. You really will. And that's really all I have to say. I will get off my little soapbox and let you guys continue on your great conversation, okay?
Sharon, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate your enthusiasm,
right,
your outlook. And I had one quick question for you. I believe you used the word, adapt. There were 3 words you used: adapt, overcome,
adjust, adapt.
And what was the other one?
Adjust.
Improvise?
No, it's adjust, adapt, and overcome. Because you have to adjust what you're going to do, or you adapt to it, and that way you overcome. Okay, most of the time you'll get through it at least. Mm-hmm. So that if you get through it, you've overcome. Okay, it doesn't mean you are jumping up and down when you're done, but you get through it. All right.
So just to cut to
confidence. What?
To cut to the chase, if you had a flat tire, and I'm not talking about you, but I mean generally, if a person has a flat tire, the thing to do is not melt down. The thing is to do is to figure out how to keep going. Not ride on the rim, of course, because that would damage the wheel and the tire that's flat. But figure out how to solve the problem and continue on with what you were doing. That's the plan. Don't melt down. Melting down doesn't help anything. It actually makes everything worse. Yep.
And if you do melt down, make it really quick. Get over it.
And keep it to yourself.
Well, if you can. Yeah, I'm not trying to be unkind. I mean, there are truly hard, tragic things that go through life that take a while to get through. Okay. But the majority of things that gloomy people are gloomy about are really trivial in the scheme of life. Okay. So you hit a red light. Oh, well, if you were being proactive, you would have given yourself 10 minutes extra to get to town to accommodate the fact that there are, as some people say, stupid drivers out there. And so we have a long stretch of road that we have to drive, 20 miles of highway driving. There's a lot of curves and hills, so you can't pass a lot of places. It's highway driving. The speed limit is 70, okay? The other day you got behind somebody going 45 miles an hour. And it was kind of annoying, but I thought, okay, turn on the radio, sing along to the music, and I already gave myself 10 minutes extra to get to town, to where I'm going. So it's not a hill to die on. It's not kind of the speed I like to go, but, you know, I got there and I got there on time. So kind of it's being proactive as to your expectations that, you know, with our traveling, we get these people that go really slow for no reason at all. And I'm not talking about when it's snowy or icy. I mean, beautiful sunny day and they're going 45. You know what I mean? And, but instead of letting that ruin my day, it's like I've already planned that I can get behind these type of drivers, so I give myself extra time. And then the second thing is like, okay, well, I'm going to be going slower now, so what can I do? Okay, I could listen to something on the radio, or, you know, I can just sing along or just start making plans for tomorrow, or, you know, it's adjusing to what you have to adjust to.
We have those same drivers here. They're called farmers.
Well, you're not on a highway, I don't think, are you, to your town?
No. You know, it's mostly 2-lane roads here, hilly, curvy. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying. No real safe places to pass, and the double yellow lines to encourage you not to pass. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's frustrating, but what you've done is what we do. We just say, it's going to take an hour to get there under normal circumstances. Let's leave 15 minutes early, so that when we get behind that tractor, or when we get behind that slow poke, or when we, hit, one of those road construction sites that we didn't know about, it's not a big deal, because we've already allowed for that in our planning, in our preparation. So, yeah. Sharon, thank you so much for your call.
Okay. All right. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye. How's Sharon in Montana? Rick, we've been talking about happiness. Let me share something with you that I think is going to be a life changer. So it just made the news that, and this is not a political thing. Well, it is a political thing, but it has to do with physics. And so the governor of California decided to issue an executive order banning the sale of gasoline-powered cars. So unilaterally, this guy, Governor Gavin Newsom, said on Wednesday that he has a plan to ban the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. And the goal is to reduce the state's air pollution and combat climate change. So that, it sounds like a real easy thing to do. So we'll just switch to electric cars. I don't see how that can possibly work. And I'll tell you why. And this is where the physics comes in. Maybe it'll work with, personal transportation vehicles, things to get you to the store if you want to go there, things to get you back and, vehicles to get you back and forth to work. But I don't see it working for a truck, because you can't pack enough energy into a battery to power a truck with a load. You can't pack enough energy into a battery for a farm tractor, because right now other than nuclear reactors, it seems that the greatest density per pound of fuel would be diesel. The second greatest would probably be gasoline. Electricity does not pack the energy density of a fossil fuel, in my understanding. Rick, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think that it's possible to just say, okay, no more gasoline-powered vehicles in 15 years?
Didn't China just also declare that they're going to be gasoline, free of gasoline by 2030 or something like that? Didn't they just do that?
I'm not up on that particular date.
I think they did. Yeah, I think that there's a move now because of carbon emissions and other kinds of environmental considerations that everybody's, very strongly, for. I don't know. Electricity is not a very efficient thing because you have to heat something, and that's, losses right out of the gate.
Okay, so here's the thing to think about. I mean, it sounds wonderful, no more tailpipe emissions from the vehicle. Okay. But you have tailpipe emissions at the power generation stations, whether they're using coal or natural gas or oil fired or whatever the power generation stations are, unless they are water powered, with a dam and water turbines, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Or nuclear. But nuclear has a massive problem because the exhaust emissions from a nuclear reactor, I'm being speaking in metaphor, we don't know what to do with it because it is deadly for thousands of years. So we don't know what to do with the exhaust, if you will, from a nuclear reactor. But it seems to me that the grid in California is so taxed, so stressed on hot days that it can't provide enough electricity anyway. So they have blackouts, rolling blackouts. They reduce the electricity, many times because they can't deliver it now. And then if we say, yeah, but we all want to have electric cars and we want to charge them, at day and night, how's that going to work? When the governor says, hey, listen, don't be charging your cars tonight because we don't have enough electricity for you. So now you can't get to work because you're trapped by an electric car that you can't get fuel for, which happens to be the wall outlet in your garage or your apartment. So I don't think this is all that well thought out. However, there is something that I think is important about gasoline vehicles. I wanted to mention this with your expertise, Rick. So gasoline powered vehicles that we use for transportation in trucks and, light trucks and so forth on the roads, highways and byways. Those vehicles use catalytic converters to clean up and burn the unburned hydrocarbons that the engine couldn't completely burn. So instead of releasing them into the air, they get sent through a red-hot 1500-degree catalytic converter. The problem with that is the catalytic converter has to be at 1500 degrees or so to operate. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us, richardallanmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Rick, so I mentioned the Governor, Gavin Newsom of California, his executive order banning electric cars by 2035. That's 15 years from now. Sounds like it's way off in the future, but it's only 15 years. And I mentioned the density of fuel. What do you think? Do you think that makes any sense at all, banning gasoline-powered automobiles, cars?
Well, that's our future. I don't know if it's a better future. It's like there's other things that I think would be a better power system, but, what do I know? That's what everything...
Well, actually, you know a lot. Are you talking about hydrogen?
Yeah. That's one thing you could talk about. There's half a dozen other things that you could talk about as well, but, I don't know exactly what would be a better fuel than right now. There's nuclear power has got to stop. That's that. There's no question about that one.
How about this, Rick? Brown's gas. I'm sure you've heard of Brown's gas.
Yeah.
Class, simply speaking, there are people I know who have made a Brown's gas generator. And simply, it's really, really simple. What they do is they take a jar. Now, think of it like a quart mason jar. And they put 2 electrodes in it. And these are just pieces of wire separated by water. And they put an electric charge like 12 volts from the 12-volt battery. And these 2 electrodes will cause gas to bubble out of the water. Water is H2, meaning 2 parts hydrogen, O, 1 part oxygen. So it's 2 to 1, hydrogen to oxygen. And by applying an electric current right from the car battery to this jar of water, there will be some bubbles that appear. Twice the percentage or twice the amount will be hydrogen, which is explosive. And the other amount would be oxygen, which is needed for combustion. So it's perfect. And what you do is you have a hose that comes right out of this jar and goes into the intake system, like where the air cleaner is, for example, of your gasoline-powered vehicle, and it boosts the horsepower, boosts the combustibility, reduces the amount of exhaust emissions, and that is burning hydrogen and oxygen, but also it's burning gasoline. But it uses some energy to make that electrolysis action happen in the jar. So there are, lots of methods of improving the simple design, more surface area for the electrodes. Some people have used spoons, like a stainless steel spoon as an electrode, actually 2 electrodes, because they will last longer than a piece of wire. So there's lots of really clever ways of increasing the surface area of these electrodes. But Rick, it works, yes?
Yes. Bronze gas is just one of a number of different things that have been offered up as an alternative. But, I'm holding out. I think we're going to be able to do something with electromagnetic fields, like Tesla.
When you say electromagnetic fields, are you talking about like levitation on a rail?
Electromagnetics, where you radiate and you pull off, not 5J like they're doing now, but something similar.
Okay. Well, when you said electromagnetics, I was thinking of maglev. Actually have a railroad train not actually riding on the rails. Almost like levitated above, so you have even more reduced friction. In addition to a power supply, that could be electromagnetic.
Right.
But
there's a lot of different possibilities. I don't know where we're going to end up in our future with what kind of power systems we're going to decide we're going to want to use. But I do know that we have a lot of different options right now that we can choose from. And I don't have a clue yet which one's going to be the best.
How about the very first option, which would be do nothing? And when I say do nothing, I don't mean do anything about the problem. I mean, how about using less? How about instead of going to the movies, don't go to the movies? How about instead of going out to eat, just because you feel like going out to eat, don't waste that energy? How about conserving, consuming less, doing less that is wasteful? Forget going to Disney. 2 very quick comments. We have Bob in Michigan on the line and David in San Francisco on the line. We'll be right with you. I just wanted to mention that Brown's gas, BROWN, apostrophe S, Brown's gas. It's also known as HHO, hydrogen, oxygen, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. And I mentioned do less, waste less, conserve. And that's not what's happening in my email inbox. I'm getting emails from Sam's Club. Hey, don't forget to buy this and this and this, and hurry, hurry, hurry. The sale ends. Hurry, hurry, buy more. Same thing with Harbor Freight Tools and Walmart. The emails just keep coming. Buy more, hurry up, got to get more stuff. And that's what's wrong with America. We don't have to buy more stuff. We don't have to waste more money. We don't have to go to the movies, Disney, and go out to eat and squander money frivolously. We could do with less. But it seems that the marketeers don't want us to do that. They want us to spend money we don't have on things we don't need. Bob in Michigan, welcome.
You're talking about eco-friendly transportation, or trying to find an answer for that, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, the solution has been with us for a long time.
You're talking about reducing friction? What are you saying?
Well, reducing your carbon footprint, shall we say?
Yeah.
It's called a horse.
How do you do it? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Gwyneth Isaacs has capacity for 2 people on her horses, and that's exactly what she's doing. We did a broadcast about that. I'm sure you heard it.
Well, where I'm at, there's a lot of Amish around here. So
right?
they've had the answer for, they're using the answer.
Yeah, well, yes and no, but they have buggies, and the buggies have axles, and the axles are connected to wheels, and the wheels have rubber tires.
Right.
So, it's not like they have a zero footprint. We're all addicted to machinery, and the Amish don't make their own nails and hammers and saws. They buy them. And although they don't use electricity, at least the Amish around here, they use diesel. So where we might have an electric powered saw, they have a gas powered, they have a compressor powered saw. So instead of an extension cord that runs a hand saw to cut, wood, like to build a house, a stick built house, they would use a gasoline powered compressor connected to a hose that's connected to a air powered saw.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they don't make their own nails, and they don't make their own horseshoes, and they don't make their own saddles. So even the Amish, and they don't buy their own, they don't keep their own seeds, they buy them. And when they raise plants for sale for the garden, they are put in plastic pots, and they use pre-made bags of compressed potting soil.
Okay,
so I think the horse is a great idea.
Yeah.
But it's slow.
In other words, they're a little closer to the Mother Earth than a lot of us are in our high-tech world is.
Absolutely. But let me tell you about let me just shed some light on this. We've had some Amish move in around here, and one of the few thriving businesses that people have is they drive the Amish to work. So the Amish build barns and, those kinds of things for farmers. And they can't get there.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't get there. So there are people who have set up businesses where they use their Chevrolet pickup trucks to haul the Amish and the trailer loaded with whatever the Amish want to move from here to there. So the Amish hire the Englishmen, and that's what they're called. We're called the Englishmen. They hire people like us who have vehicles to take them wherever they want to go, and they pay by the mile. And how do we know this? Because we fix the cars and trucks that get broken by hauling the Amish around.
Yeah, actually,
that's how we know.
I used to do that on occasion too, at one time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
so
I'll tell you one
terms
thing,
of the horse, I think
they pay very well.
If they like you.
Well, I'm very likable, so.
You are. You absolutely are. But what I'm saying, I don't mean you. I mean, the Amish will work with people whom they like. Yeah. If they like a person, they're pretty loyal, they're friendly, and, all those wonderful things. But if they think that, they don't like you, they'll go find somebody else.
Well,
but as far as the horse is concerned, if you want to get up and go fast, well, you got to saddle the horse, you've got to cinch the strap, you got to climb on, and you're not going to go that fast. And the horse doesn't go forever. I mean, you go a lot. The reason that little towns are 10 miles apart in the West is because that's how far you could go in a day. Yeah. You could go 10 miles, load up your horse and wagon and go back home, and you could do that all in one day. But it took a whole day. That's why the towns are spaced 10 miles apart.
Well, maybe that's the way we're supposed to live.
Well, okay, we live very primitively here. I mean, we've got tractors, everything's old, but we are pretty close to the ground. Now, we're not as close to the ground as the Amish are because, our carbon footprint is way, way bigger because we use big machines. That's the only way we can run this farm. But there are other farms that use way bigger machines than we. There are machines that farmers use in Missouri that are so big that the farmers don't know what they're going to do when it comes time to change the tires on these great big tractors. I'm talking about 350 horsepower. These tractors are so big, you need like a 6-foot ladder to climb in one. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're huge. And I asked one of these guys, I said, so what does it cost to change the tires on this? And the guy said, I don't know. We don't want to keep it that long. So the idea is get rid of it before you need tires. So we have put ourselves in boxes that it's very, very difficult to get out of. And I'm resisting this at every turn. But the horse thing I think is a great idea. And I have a feeling that a lot of people in rural America are going to get back there, because when they destroy the gasoline engine and the service stations and the gas pumps and we can't get gasoline anymore, it's going to be horses.
You're probably right.
I hate to say that.
Or propane-powered vehicles.
Yeah, and well, that would still, a propane-powered vehicle is the same as a gasoline-powered vehicle. I mean, it's very easy to convert a gas engine that has a carburetor to run on propane. As a matter of fact, let me tell you a very quick story, very quickly. So I was looking for a propane tank, and I was on Craigslist a couple of years ago, and there was an 80-gallon propane tank. And it was $100, maybe $125. And I thought, I need to buy that. Mm-hmm. So I called the guy and he said, yeah, I just took it out. I drove this truck up. I wanted to buy the truck. I think he got it from Louisiana. And it was a truck that was a V8, a Dodge truck converted to run on propane. And he couldn't wait to get it off propane, which was about $1 a gallon, to run on $3 a gallon gasoline at the time. Couldn't wait to get rid of the propane tank. So I bought for $100 or $125 a propane tank and the conversion unit to switch a gas-powered V8 to run on propane. He couldn't wait to get rid of it. So I know for a fact that you can convert a rototiller, a generator, to run on propane. Now it's better for the stationary, where the tank can be easily mounted, like a generator. You can hook up a generator to a 500-gallon propane tank and have it run for a long time. And all you do, and make sure you research this class before you do it. But literally, you could take propane out of a hose and feed it into a carburetor with no gasoline, and that engine will run. And the more propane you give it, the faster it'll run. Now, that's what the regulator does. Now, don't do that, but that's the principle upon which a gas-powered engine can run on propane. It's as simple as that. But they have regulators with butterfly valves and so forth to make it, safer. Because that's not a safe way of doing it, and don't do it. But you can look it up on YouTube. You'll see how it's done.
Vince?
Any comments, Rick?
Well, no, I just listening.
Well,
okay.
Why did the guy want to get rid of change back to gasoline?
It's hard for me to comprehend that. He literally bought this thing, I guess, on the internet, this truck. It had propane in it, so he had to use the propane to get it to Missouri. So he drove it. He literally drove it, and there's propane still in the tank that he sold me. Yeah. And I guess, well, one thing is you probably only get, theoretically, maybe 85% of the horsepower and torque out of a propane conversion that you would get out of gasoline. Now, for me, we have a big propane tank here at the farm. So I could literally just go to our propane tank, hook up a compressor to transfer propane from a 500-gallon tank, for example, to the 80-gallon tank and ride around. And I could have an 80-gallon fuel tank, 80 gallons, not 26 like in my pickup truck. I could have 80 gallons. I could go for a month or two. Right now, I could probably go for a year, because we don't drive that much. But the problem is, where do you top off? You've got to have, a place that'll sell you propane and put it into your big tank. But that can be done. But I guess he didn't want to do that. But to me, if I could get propane at $1 a gallon or $1.19 a gallon, I'd be stupid not to do that, right? Especially if the truck was already converted for that.
Right. Yeah. Oh.
So, I know, Bob, I've never met you, but I know you're a frugal guy. You don't waste anything. I know that. I've never met you, but I know that's the case. And I'm frugal too. I don't waste anything. And I'm sure Rick is the same way. We don't waste things. And to me, you know, one more quick story. When I was selling auto parts back in the 1970s, there was a taxi company that bought parts from us. And this guy converted all his taxi cabs, checker cabs back then, in the 1970s, to run on propane. And I asked him, I was fascinated by this because everybody else was using gasoline. Well, he said, well, here's the problem. With gasoline, you have to change the oil all the time because it gets contaminated. With propane, you don't. With propane, the heads don't get all kinds of carbon buildup in them. They just run really clean. And what comes out of the tailpipe is pretty much water vapor. Right. It's clean. It doesn't smell. It uses less fuel. And you don't have to pay the road tax of about roughly 50 cents per gallon. State and federal, gasoline tax or diesel tax. Bob, anything else? We've got David.
I wanted to ask something about Rick.
Okay. All right. Hold that thought. David will be right with you. Just a quick comment. So there's a company called Lordstown, Lordstown. They just made an announcement that they've got, for $100, you can reserve a purchase of one of their electric trucks. They don't make them yet, but you can reserve one for $100. And they claim about 40,000 orders or pre-orders for this endurance pickup truck. It looks like a flashy Dodge or a flashy Ford or a flashy Chevrolet pickup truck. And it's supposedly electric. But the bottom line is, I think the problem is still the same problem that we had in 1906 when there was the first electric vehicle that you could buy. You could actually buy one of those in 1906. And the problem was the battery, and the problem was the charge, and the problem was the energy density, which is what we mentioned earlier in this broadcast. Bob, you wanted to ask Rick a question?
Well, I just, you're getting a lot of emails, I guess. Are you able to get to most of them?
I try to read every one. Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes I get links.
I sent you one a little while back. I hadn't heard back from you.
Okay. What was the subject matter?
Well, on my grill business, I'm trying to get a little help on the manufacturing process.
Okay, so that I did not get that one. Can you send it to me again?
Guess we'll look for it again. And
send and just for in a subject line, put Bob in Michigan. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do that.
And you had a question for Rick?
Well, I was at his website. I guess he's available for some consultation because I need some business help here.
Okay. Rick, can he call you?
Yeah, sure. I'm here.
Okay. Do you have his number?
Someone just called.
Do you have his number, Bob?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, very good. All right. Then we've got David in San Francisco patiently waiting for over 21 minutes. Anything
Sorry
else?
about that, David.
Anything else, Bob? Oh, I think we just lost Bob. Okay. David, welcome. You're on with Rick.
Hey, thanks, Vincent. And was it Rick, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I heard you talking about being, cautious with your money and whatnot, and I was going to give you an example of how you can kind of create a multiplier effect.
Okay.
A friend of mine, back right after 9/11, when the economy totally crashed, a friend of mine out here in San Francisco was an art dealer, and he, his business was crashing as well, and it got to be his birthday. And so I had $100 I wanted to give him. And what I did was I bought him 4 ads in a local newspaper. He liked to specialize in Afro-American art. So I bought him 4 different ads in the Afro-American newspaper. So he got the 4 ads. The newspaper got the $100. I made sure that it went to the ad salesman who got a commission. And then, of course, he got the original friend got a little bit of business from it. So a simple $100 went to 4 directions at the same time, and the newspaper got, who was starving at the time. It created an opportunity to do a multiplier effect with the same $100. And of course I got praise for giving him, $100. So 5 different directions, I guess you'd say.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
We had some students at high school that learned about the multiplier effect, and we just got a new color copier. I was a consultant there at the school system, and they copied some Federal Reserve notes and used that as a multiplier effect. And then they went to town. They went to Richmond, and they started spending them, and they got arrested because they only photocopied one side. It was a color copier, and it worked pretty well, but they only did one side of the bill. So they were arrested.
Bad idea.
Just a little bit of humor. But so what you're talking about is local. Spending your money locally and not sending it off to the big corporation that's someplace else.
Well, yeah, that was a major part of it. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one last thing. I noticed you're still in Missouri, right?
I am. So is the rest of the family.
Yeah, you noticed that Governor Parsons came down with COVID the other day.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to mention. He and his buddies, have been maskless. They've been advocates of don't need no stinking mask, and yet he and his wife contracted the coronavirus, and they say that they're healthy, but they're under quarantine. Right. So, I've been saying I have not changed my tune one iota that the coronavirus is the real deal. It can kill you, it can maim you, it can cause organ damage, brain damage, etc. But the bigger deal is the manipulation of it and the ensuing corona panic.
No joke,
now,
yeah.
And we have Sunny Skidmore coming on next week with us, and she knows people who have gotten it, and she knows one who has died from it. And it was in her nursing home, and she's going to share that with us next week. So, yeah, so now we have an instructor who has firsthand experience with the death of the coronavirus. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, thank you so much. Dave, thank you.